All right, guys, we're getting ready to read chapter 6. We finished pretty much talking about most of the Spanish conquistadors, and now we're going to switch gears and talk about some of the explorers that came from other places other than Spain. So I'll read here and just follow along. While the Spanish conquistadors searched for gold in the south, other Europeans sailed to the northern coast of the New World. Some looked for the Northwest Passage they thought would lead to the riches of the Indies. Others explored to claim the vast resources of the New World. So let's look at this map here. It says New World Exploration, and in the dark is areas explored by Spain, which we just recently learned about how Spain had explored down here in Cuba and Florida and the Southwest, Mexico, South America. Then up here in the lighter color were the areas explored by other European nations. All right, next page, 96. All right, Jacques Cartier. Jacques Cartier was born in Saint-Malo, an island off the north coast of France. His father was a fisherman, and young Cartier often joined him on fishing trips. On these trips, he learned how to sail in the rough North Atlantic waters. Let's see if I can make this bigger. No, I cannot. Okay. As a young man, Cartier traveled on a Portuguese trading ship to Brazil. What he really wanted, however, was the chance to explore Newfoundland and discover what lay beyond the coastline. So Cartier talked to King Francis I of France. Cartier promised the king that he would search for gold, spices, and a northwest route to Asia. All right, so I'm going to stop here, and you can answer number 1 on your paper. Number 1 on your paper says Jacques Cartier promised the King of France that he would search for 3 things on his expedition. What were they? And here it is in this sentence right here, this last sentence of this paragraph where the arrow is. Cartier promised the king that he would search for gold, spices, and a northwest route to Asia. So write that on your paper, pause it, and write that down, and then once you're finished, you can start the video back up again. All right, the king agreed to pay for his ships and supplies. For Cartier, it was the chance of a lifetime. On April 20th, 1534, Cartier sailed from Saint-Malo with 2 ships and about 120 men. When he landed on Newfoundland, his men put up a 30-foot cross with the inscription, "Long live the King of France." The local chief, named Donnacona, objected. He rightly guessed that the French were trying to claim the land. Native Americans didn't like that because it was already their land, right? Page 97. In response, Cartier kidnapped Donnacona's 2 sons. Cartier promised Donnacona that he would take good care of them. He wanted to take them to France, but he would bring them back along with many goods. Reluctantly, the old chief agreed. I guess he didn't feel like he had much choice. Cartier then sailed northeast, where he discovered an enormous opening in the coastline that stretched inland as far as he could see. He thought he had finally found the fabled Northwest Passage to China. In reality, he was looking at the mouth of the great St. Lawrence River. Cartier wanted to follow the passage west, but he knew that winter was fast approaching. So he headed across the Atlantic for France. All right, so for number 2 on your paper, it says Jacques Cartier thought he had found the Northwest Passage, but he had actually found what river? Right here, we just read it in this paragraph right here. In reality, he was looking at the mouth of the great St. Lawrence River. Okay, St. Lawrence River right there. So pause it and write that down. Okay, so I want to pull up a map here to show you. Here it is. All right, so Cartier's first voyage, he came over from France. All right, and you can see how he came up. Here's Newfoundland, which is right off the coast of Canada. And he came in here, went down, okay, and he saw, okay, oh, he saw that there it goes in farther, but he had to go back because winter was coming. All right, so he thought when he saw this water going this way to the west, he thought that was the Northwest Passage they had been looking for. He thought maybe that water route would take him to Asia. Of course, we know it didn't. It goes into North America. You can see down here on this little map the area that it's zoomed in on up here right off the coast of Canada. All right, so we're going to go back to the reading now. All right, so he didn't find the Northwest Passage, so he goes back to France. Remember, he had those two kidnapped boys with him. When he arrived home, he told the king that he might have found the Northwest Passage. King Francis was disappointed that Cartier had not brought back any treasures, but he was hopeful that a route to the east would bring riches to France. So he agreed to send Cartier on a second expedition. In May 1535, Cartier set sail again. This time he planned to explore the St. Lawrence River, which he believed would lead him to Asia. He took 3 ships, about 110 men, and Donnacogne's 2 sons. During their time in France, the young natives had learned to speak French fairly well. This made them useful as guides and interpreters to Cartier. Here's an interesting little fact over here. Did you know on his first voyage in 1534, Jacques Cartier saw a strange animal that he described as a large, clumsy ox with 2 tusks like those of an elephant. It was a walrus. Kind of cool. All right, page 98. All right, when he reached the New World, Cartier entered the St. Lawrence River. Cartier noticed that the water was salty and had regular tides. It had to lead to the Western Sea. Okay, as they sailed, the young natives pointed up the river and told Cartier they were nearing the village of Stadaconia, where their father ruled. They also told Cartier that farther up, the waterway narrowed and the water turned fresh. Disappointed, Cartier realized that this was probably not his passageway to Asia. Nevertheless, he and his men continued sailing up the river, exploring the land. A vast wilderness surrounded them. They spotted many animals, including elk, deer, and moose. Salmon, eels, and lampreys filled the waters. They even saw creatures such as the beluga whale, which they had never seen before. Let's see if my pointer will work. No. Thought maybe I could. Fireworks? No. Spotlight. Let's try that. Oh, that's cool. All right. When they reached the village of Stadaconia, Chief Donnacogna greeted Cartier and was happily reunited with his sons. Because it was too late in the year to sail back to France, Cartier and his crew prepared for winter in Canada. They built a fort, stacked firewood, and salted stores of meat and fish. Okay, I don't like that. Turn that off. Alt F, Alt F. There we go. All right, moving over to page 99. The winter months were harsh. Many of the men came down with scurvy, which is a disease that makes you sick when you don't eat enough fruits and vegetables. 25 Frenchmen died, and those remaining were ill. During a visit with the chief's son, Cartier learned how to make an herbal brew that cured scurvy. Within a week after drinking the medicine, the men grew strong again. As spring returned, Cartier knew that it was time to sail home. He still had not found the Northwest Passage, nor had he found any gold or treasure to bring back to King Francis. All right, down here. Donnacogna, the Indian chief, had talked about a rich kingdom to the north called Saguenay. Cartier wanted to tell the king about this wealthy kingdom, but he worried that the king wouldn't believe him. So he decided to kidnap Donnacogna. Nice of him. He would have the chief personally tell the king about the treasures of Saguenay. Cartier promised the natives that he would return their chief to them within a year. Get rid of that. Unfortunately, Donnacona died from European diseases before he ever met the king. But the king wanted Cartier to establish a French colony in the New World anyway, to challenge Spain's claims to North America. They didn't want Spain to get all the land, right? They wanted their own share. Cartier had a hard time recruiting volunteers to settle in North America's cold wilderness. He was forced to accept criminals from prison. All right, so that's the only people he could get to come. All right, page 100. In May 1541, Cartier left on his third voyage to North America. All right, hang on. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's pull up and look at what his second voyage looked like. Aha! So the second voyage that we just read about, he traveled pretty far down the St. Lawrence River. That's a river up in Canada. If you go far enough, you're getting into the Great Lakes over here. He realized it wasn't taking him to Asia, so then he decided not to go any further. All right, so back we go to our book. All right, he's on his third voyage now to North America. It was his largest voyage yet, with 5 ships and about 1,500 men. Cartier landed in Canada and made his way to Stadacona. When the natives came to meet him, they asked about their chief. Cartier told them the old chief had died. Worried that the natives would attack, Cartier sailed his ships farther upstream. He established the first French colony in North America and named it Charlesbourg Royal. Cartier was also thrilled to discover nuggets that look like gold and crystals that look like diamonds. Okay, here in this little piece, he was certain that he had finally found New World treasure. But the French colonists at Charlesbourg Royal grew uneasy. The neighboring natives no longer trusted them, and the French feared they would be massacred. After a long, harsh winter, the colonists were eager to leave. They loaded their ships and sailed for France. They still had not found the Northwest Passage, but Cartier hoped the king would be pleased with the gold and diamonds he found. In France, a devastated Cartier learned that his New World treasures were worthless. His gold was iron pyrite, or fool's gold. His diamonds were only a transparent mineral worth nothing. His expedition was considered a failure. There was no colony and no treasure. Cartier spent the rest of his life in St. Malo and died there in 1557 at the age of 66. Okay, page 101. Despite his failures, Cartier was the first to claim what is now Canada for the French. He also discovered the Great St. Lawrence River, which would later become more valuable than a gold mine, and his reports gave Europeans a great deal of knowledge about the New World. Nevertheless, France would not show interest again in North America for more than half a century. Okay, half a century is 100 years, by the way. All right, so let me pull up this paper and let's take a look at question 3 because it's a bigger one. Question 3 here. Maybe. Okay, I've got to turn the webcam on. I'll be all right. It's not going to let me do that right now. All right, I'll just read it to you. Question 3 says, at the time, Cartier's expedition was considered a failure. Do you agree or disagree? Give evidence to support your answer. Use race. Start with I believe or I think. So here's what we'll do. We'll just pull this up. I'm a little slow at this stuff, obviously. All right, so remember with the race strategy, you want to restate the question, answer the question, you want to cite your evidence, and then you want to wrap it up. That'll be okay. So, make this a little bigger so you can see it. So it says to start out with I believe or I think. And the prompt, remember, was do you agree that Cartier's expedition was a failure? Because they believed it was a failure. So you're going to say, I think Cartier's expedition, and you're going to put was or was not, that's up to you, a failure. So that's the R and the A. We've restated the question and we've answered the question of whether we think it is. Now we've got to give evidence. So this is where you're going to say some things that the text says. So you're going to pull some, at least two, I need at least two facts out of the text that tells something that either proves that it was a failure, or you could probably find some things to prove that it wasn't a failure, because we actually read some of both. All right, so you're going to fill in, what did it say on that page? It was 100 and 101. I want at least two things that the text says, okay, and you're going to finish that. And then that's the C, that's the cite evidence, and then the only thing you'll have left to do on the race strategy is to end it. So you're going to say something like, this proves his expedition was or wasn't a failure, whichever one you decided it was. Okay, this proves his expedition was or wasn't a failure. So you should have about 4 sentences, I think, because you've got your first sentence, your intro, you've got your 2 pieces of evidence I asked you to find, and then your wrap-up sentence that says this proves, and I think that will finish you out there. All right, so we're going to go back to our book now. All right, we're not going to read this. You're probably glad to know. So moving on. We're going to read about Henry Hudson and Samuel de Champlain. I think we will save them for tomorrow, so I'm actually going to stop there, and so you will have questions 1 through 3 done on your paper, and we'll stop there, and tomorrow we'll learn about Henry Hudson and Samuel de Champlain. All right, that's it.